Alrighty, guys, welcome back. Earlier, we were talking about the Denver Broncos will release Russell Wilson 2 years after a blockbuster trade, and now we're going to be talking about all the big head celebrities who congratulated Caitlin Clark for the breaking all-time NCAA scoring record. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind you guys to like and follow the show. We get a number of questions from the viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donation link with your question. That link is GSMCPodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also just really helps the show. I don't know why you gave me that
Who woke up all angry and bitter on your side? Bunch of big head. You're like,
no,
look at these big head fools are gonna congratulate her.
Big head celebrities, you know? I didn't mean it in a negative connotation.
Listen, look, how many of these big head fools congratulated her? I'm like, damn.
That's not how I meant it. A-list celebrities, I don't know.
Don't call me no damn A-list celebrity, big head fool.
I didn't mean it that way. The viewers know what I mean.
Wow, that's an interesting way. I just lost the whole thing on this one because you called him big head.
I didn't mean him like big head as in like the actual big head. I meant,
arrogant.
No, I didn't mean arrogant either.
Normally,
you're putting words in my mouth.
These are not the words that I was trying to say.
All right. Well, moving on from that. So we have President Joe Biden, LeBron James, Nike, among others, who congratulated Caitlin Clark for breaking the all-time NCAA scoring record. Caitlin Clark made history on Sunday afternoon in Iowa City. The Hawkeye star officially surpassed Pete Maravich and became the NCAA's all-time leading scorer while pushing number 6 Iowa past the number 2 Ohio State 93-83 at Carver Hawkeye Arena. Clark dropped 35 points in the game, which pushed her to 3,685 points in her career. Clark, who needed just 18 points to break Maravich's record, entered Sunday's regular season finale, already broke Kelsey Plum's scoring record on the women's side. She passed Lynette Woodard's scoring record last week too, which left only Maravich's to the top. Once Caitlin broke the record, plenty of big names in the basketball world immediately started congratulating her, including Los Angeles Lakers star LeBron James, who yesterday we talked about became the first player in NBA history to score 40,000 points on Saturday night. Joe Biden also congratulated Clark on social media on Sunday night too. Nike, which has been all over Clark's record-setting year, released an incredible new ad immediately after the record was broken. Then we have Scott, Billie Jean King, and others who made
Billie
sure
Jean
to congratulate.
King, the great legend tennis player, the one that kind of tore down, the how would you say it, the women's, the barrier that a woman can be an athlete. That her and Bobby Riggs played against each other, and she beat Bobby Riggs as the first woman to beat a professional male tennis player. I believe he was professional at the time. But if we're going to talk about Pete Maravich, the first thing we got to put respect on his name. That's Pistol Pete Maravich.
Pistol
Pete. That's the man back in the day, So he's literally one of the greatest basketball players to ever lived. He's passed on now. Actually, when he passed on while doing the thing he loved, which was play basketball. Going back, it's kind of cool to see this because no one talks about Pistol Pete anymore. And Pistol Pete was just, a legend. but now, because she broke his record, people are talking about him and how he averaged over 40 something points a game as a college player, one of
Mm-hmm.
the greatest college players to ever play the game. And so I love that his name is in kind of this era now where people who are like younger, Pistol Pete was out of the league when I was watching. So for people to know who Pistol Pete is now is kind of nice. It's kind of funny that we are covering this. One, yes, Caitlin Clark has been everywhere in the news. And the thing about it, 2024 has started out as the year of the women.
Mm-hmm.
Women's sports have just been kind of, I feel like, at its apex. And Caitlin Clark has been the leader of this charge. I find it funny that we're doing this article, and this was not the article that I was originally planning on doing that we were going to be talking about. And here's a unique thing about this article and myself. I don't follow much in the way of WNBA. I like, as a whole, I like women's basketball. I love CrossFit with women, women's MMA, women's boxing, women's soccer, but not really the WNBA and a little bit of the college. So I didn't know a lot about Caitlin. And so living here in Portugal, it's just a unique situation came up. Um, I live in Portugal, southern Portugal, and the very first couple I ever met in Portugal was another couple. We moved from San Francisco to Portugal, southern Portugal, on the exact same time. Another couple moved from San Francisco to Portugal, and
Mm-hmm.
we met a week after we were both in town. I'm getting to the point of this. We met a week after arriving in Portugal. Turned out this person is a college basketball coach, worked with Pat Summitt, worked with some of the greats, have coached some of the greatest basketball players in the history of women's basketball. And I reached out to her. She's a good friend of mine here. She's one of my like great friends here in Portugal. And I had just reached out to her last night and I said, I want us to get together and I want to sit down because she's an avid WNBA women's college basketball fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I want to sit down with you. I want you to educate me on Caitlin Clark because, this is kind of like the new phenomenon. No one really talked about Caitlin Clark that much.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't the focal point of women's sport until about what a month, 2 months ago,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where it became like the big story.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted someone who had been following her entire career. Even, she goes into women's college basketball scouting, meaning like she scouts the high school, women, everything. So I had scheduled a meeting with her, which is going to happen today, so I could learn more about Caitlin Clark so I could be more informed.
Mm-hmm.
And so then this article came up and it's like, wow, it's kind of perfect. Now, let's touch on this article. I love the fact that anytime women's sports can get a spotlight on it, I am the biggest fan of that. And so the first thing I'm going to tell you is, to see President Biden congratulate her. LeBron James. Remember I told you about LeBron James? He gets a lot of heat, but he reaches out to her. He could have ignored her, bit timed her, and it would have been no big deal. No one would have been the wiser. But he went there and he reached out, and greatness recognizes great. And kind of reached out. Billie Jean King, who hasn't really been in the spotlight in a very long time, an older player who has retired from the 60s and 70s. I think the 60s, yeah. Well, and she's just one of the all-time great and one of the great advocates for women's equality in sports. That's why I'm like, I want to put respect on Pistol Pete's name, and I definitely want to put respect on Billie Jean King's name, because Billie Jean has done so much for women's sports. So I love this. Nike, she's a Nike athlete, so of course they're gonna recognize her. But I love that some of the greatest athletes of all time are coming out and recognizing this. There is a negative side to this that I'm going to point out, and this is kind of a sad one. I've reached out, as I told you, I reached out to a friend of mine who was a college coach and player and scout and everything else. But I've also reached out in the last week to a number of women that I know are big basketball fans. And I didn't like what I heard. If you want to know the truth, I did not like what I heard. One person was like, they're just propping her up. Wait till she get to the WNBA. They're gonna shut her down. She's
I'm
nothing. She's
sorry.
nothing.
I'm sorry. Propping her
Right.
up, she literally surpassed Pete Maravich.
That's what
How
I'm
are
getting.
we
That's what I'm
propping
getting
her
at.
up?
But you don't understand. For every flowers you get, there's a thorn there. There's
Yeah.
someone that always, is going to knock her down. This woman, like I said, I'm not a college expert, women's college basketball expert. I'm a big Pat Summitt when she was with Tennessee fan, but she's leading the nation in scoring. She's leading the nation in assists. Scorers don't normally lead the nation in assists as well. That's kind of oil and water. The scorers score, the assists, this is out the scorers. You know what I mean? They're two separate jobs in many kind of ways. She's showing by leading the nation in assists and points, she's that all-round player, kind of like LeBron is. LeBron's that's why I love combining the two. LeBron is the all-time leading scorer, 40,000 points. But LeBron's gonna be number 2 or number 3 all time in assists. Maybe even, depending on how long he plays, maybe even number one. But he's gonna be 1, 2, or 3 in assists. That doesn't normally happen. That's oil and water. That is rarefied air there. But you'd be surprised how many people that I know that are females, women, who are big basketball fans. I was shocked how much hate I heard. Or not necessarily, it's like, we'll see. We'll see. Those girls in the NBA, the WNBA, gonna shut her down. There's a lot of people, and I don't know. That's the reason why I wanted to set this meeting with my friend who is a scout and all this, because I wanted to understand where the hate came from. That's why I picked this story. Is it because, like, when you look at her, she doesn't look like intimidating. She's kind of skinny and things, so she's not a big, strong, type player. So, when you look at Brittany Griner, you understand, like, Brittany Griner is a genetic freak. This is a regular girl who's doing abnormal things. And so that's why I scheduled this meeting today, because I want to understand the greatness that is this woman, because we don't have enough women that get the spotlight in sports, and I love it, and we need to do more of it.
Absolutely. I agree. Caitlin Clark is a beast, man. And like you said, like a lot of light has been coming to women's sports lately because we had Sabrina Ionescu doing the
Hmm.
3-point contest with Steph Curry, and now we have Caitlin Clark, who was like just blowing up the world right now with what she's doing. So, you know, as a woman, I love it. I'm happy because I don't feel like women get enough credit in the sports that they do. So,
It's really hard, if you when you grow up and you've been working in the broadcast community, you know, you you see how when you talk women's sports, how the ratings drop.
mm-hmm,
And I hate that. I really hate that because it makes it harder to talk women's sports because a lot of times men and women tune out for it.
right.
This week is one of those few times where women's basketball became part of the focal point,
Mm-hmm,
and but it didn't burn out. The Steph Curry Anascu talking about the whole 3-point shootout that delivered. That was a great event. That was the best event of the All-Star game.
mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then for her to go on and become the greatest scorer in the history of basketball, and now to pass Pistol Pete, I absolutely love it. There is not enough of this that so I'm all in for that.
I am as well. But with that, guys, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be discussing the Cowboys' plan to exercise $4.25 million roster bonus for Trey Lance, securing former 49ers quarterback for the 2024 season.